All right, I'm going to say something that is a little bit hard to hear, and I'm just going to put it out there, so just brace yourself. A woman's time is actually way more valuable than a man's time. I mean, according to research, it's just way more valuable. Why? I mean, I'm not saying that women are better inherently, but society actually puts this time limit on a woman's value. Just hear me out. A woman in her 20s is actually just at her physical peak. She is considered most beautiful at that age, most attractive physically, right? She is pretty, she's youthful, she's fertile, where a man at that age is actually just really getting started with his career, right? He's building his life, etc. He's just at the stages of being established. So imagine a woman at that age is trying to date a man at that age. He might love her, but, in order to really love her and be with her, he needs to be at a certain place. So he says, wait 10 years, right? But for a woman at that age, that's where she's at physically in terms of her peak, right? So maybe 10 years down the road, maybe he may not commit to her. So in terms of an investment, is it worth her time to waste her peak years? And, maybe she could just find somebody that is ready to commit to her right then, right? But this whole phenomenon is not so much about this kind of attraction in terms of like love or romance, but it is a larger scheme in terms of how our society looks at currency. It tells us what and who needs to have a certain kind of attention, but us as human beings, we're also looking for value. We want to be seen. So our topic is attraction. Not in a physical way, but more in terms of how society sees strategy, algorithms, and how this whole thing is actually deeply societal. Hi, guys. Welcome to Alia & Co., the podcast where we talk about complex things and we break them down. I have a guest today here that is totally familiar with all of that. He has lived in a content house and he has mastered the art of viral growth. Here is my guest, Adam Miguest. I had to just say it. That's his last name. So
Miguest.
Miguest. Okay, Miguest. He's my guest. Miguest.
Yes, I'm your guest.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Were you offended by my opener?
Absolutely not. Well, it was controversial up until you explained it.
Okay.
All right, no, I think I get it. Yeah, I know that's the old saying that the silver foxes can keep dating as long as they're like in good shape. But with women, it's a little harder.
Yeah, it can be. But I think that society views it that way to some degree, right?
I agree.
But yeah, no, okay. So
well, wait, fun fact. Yeah. I read a report that for the first time ever, Leonardo DiCaprio is dating a 27-year-old.
A 27-year-old?
He broke his 25-year-old streak.
Oh my gosh! Gasp!
Bill Belichick called him a coward.
Oh my god! He sold himself out. Okay. Oh my gosh. Yeah. When was this? Recently? The most recent girlfriend?
Last week. Yeah.
Is it that he dated a 27-year-old or his 20-year-old?
I think he started dating this girl as a 27-year-old.
Oh my
So
Lord.
the curse is broken.
Okay.
You got 25-year-olds. You have 2 more years to get Leo.
Oh my gosh.
2 more years.
Yes, 2 more years.
2 more years.
Oh my gosh. But I wonder if he'll get to the 30 point, because they say sometimes
Don't press your luck.
Right, I don't know. I mean, what do they say? A guy in his 50s needs a good woman, maybe 1 or 2 good women in their 40s in that decade, and then a guy that's 60 needs one good woman in his 50s. I don't know. I just made that up, but but either way. Okay, so let's get into you. Please introduce yourself formally, because I know that there's a lot more than just a content house.
Okay.
Like you do a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, so I was the creative director of many of the top content houses. I've done the photography or the creative direction for the Hype House, the Sway House, Not a Content House, Clubhouse Beverly Hills, Kids Next Door. These are probably the top 5 biggest content houses out in LA and technically the world. And right now I'm a viral marketing consultant.
How did you get involved in that? Because that's like a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So I started off as a photographer.
Okay.
I was always passionate about that, and I started off by shooting just like local Chicago models, influencers, And around 2019, I started to take trips out to LA. I knew LA was sort of like the way to level up what I was doing. So I would take like 2-week trips, get an Airbnb, and I would just DM like 1,000 people. Like 1,000, Jake Paul, you know, like every random person that was like big at the time in like the late 2010s, I would DM them or people around them and be like, hey, look, I'm a photographer. Here's my work. If you want to shoot, we can shoot for free. I just want to make connections, give you some good work, and no pressure to do anything else, you know. One of the people that responded was a guy named Thomas Petro.
Okay.
He was Jake Paul's, I believe, videographer at the time. And he was like, yeah, we can shoot. We shot, took some great photos. And around late 2019, he was like, I'd seen him start posting these like videos, which, now we know it was TikTok, but in 2019, nobody really knew what it was, like early 2019. And so towards the end of 2019, he's like, hey, look, man, I got an idea. I want to kind of do what Jake Paul was doing, because Jake Paul started Team 10.
Okay.
That was arguably one of the first like big content houses.
Okay.
And Thomas was like, I want to do that, but only for TikTokers. And he was like, you're welcome to come out here, do photo shoots with everybody, just come check it out. I was like, easy. Hopped on a plane, came to LA, and I ended up shooting with everybody, and everyone liked the photos. And within a week, this TikTok house called the Hype House, it was all over the world. They got a New York Times spot, Washington Post, they were on every website, and it just blew up. And this is the house that created the careers for Addison Rae, Charlie Dixie D'Amelio, Alex Warren, all these guys. So once having been there at the right time and shooting with them and making those connections, it was a combination of hard work to get my photography to the point where people actually wanted to work with me.
Right.
But it's also timing.
Right.
If I didn't go out there that one specific week and make those connections and shoot with those people, I honestly don't think I would have ever, or I wouldn't have been able to transition out to LA and come up as fast as I did and have all the opportunities as I did.
And actually, I think that a lot of these successful entrepreneurs will say that, a lot of it is hard work, but then a lot of it is luck as well.
A lot of it's luck, yeah. I think it's a combination of hard work, timing, and luck. You do have a say a little bit in timing. Like sometimes it's, I tell people this all the time. I mean, I had it pretty good here back in 2019. So I was making like 70, 80K as a photographer. I can make my own schedule. I had all the connects to the nightlife. Like I was getting invited to dinners, and I was like, it's easy to say, oh, well, obviously you're going to go to LA, but like some people don't. Some people are like, yo, I'm comfortable. Like I built a life here in Chicago. I don't need to go to LA. I had to move to LA and start over. I went from being like one of the top photographers and creators in Chicago to basically being like a peon in LA. And that's hard to do. And some people don't do it. And I tell people all the time, like, you gotta take those calculated risks.
Right.
I say don't take dumb risks, take calculated risks.
Right. I think a lot of people also are afraid to even get to a place of taking risk, right? I mean, and just hearing from what you're saying about reaching out to everybody, DMing everybody, that takes a certain level of audacity, I would say, where, yes, you'll get rejections, but at least you recognize an opportunity, you're going after, the worst they can say is no, right?
Absolutely.
Do you find that that's still something that you're carrying on right now, or seen throughout the kind of like the trajectory of your career?
Absolutely. I mean, I tell everyone, you really should be DMing 50 people a day. If you have a goal to do something and there are people out there who can help you with it, then you should be DMing 50 of those people every day.
Right.
That's really what got me to where I am, like not being afraid to say, hey, but actually here's I would say the biggest point I would give, or the biggest like advice I would give to people who want to accomplish something. Don't go into it thinking what they can do for you. Go into it thinking what you can do for them. So like I said, my message was never like, hey, I'm coming to LA, can you help me? Because everyone's going to be like, who is this dude?
Right,
like,
exactly. Why do I want to help you? Exactly, yeah.
I would go in, I would say, hey, look, I've been a photographer for 4 years. I've shot with these people. This is my work. It's good. It's good work. I'll shoot with you for free. You don't owe me anything. if you're cool with that, we can do it. And you know, if we become friends, if you like me, whatever, and you want to work together in the future, great.
Right.
But no pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how I went into it, and that's kind of what got me here today. And I do the same thing with brands. Like, I'll reach out to brands and say, hey, look, this is my work. Like, if you think it could be a good fit for you, great. If not, no worries. And that's how people need to like think, is how you can help people.
Right, absolutely. It's so important. I think also, like, when you're offering your expertise to somebody, it hits differently, right?
Yeah.
And I think that not everybody. No, okay, maybe you're not getting paid for it immediately, right?
Yeah.
You know, there might be something like that but in your heart, sometimes like people don't try because it's like, where's the monetization? I don't see it, you know. But you inherently, your inner expert or whatever, it knows, hey, listen, I know I need to establish myself some way.
Yeah.
You know, I know that eventually I will monetize on it. Eventually this is going to be something big.
Yeah.
But you're following your heart because it's something that you really enjoy doing. But at the same time, did you always have that in the back of your head? I'm going to monetize somehow. I just feel it.
Yeah. So I knew I could go a year, 2 years without monetizing, but I knew once I figured out how to monetize it, it was going to be next level.
Right.
So I totally agree. I think most people don't ever get into entertainment or follow their dream because it will take a while before you monetize. But what I did was I worked corporate America jobs that I didn't like, but I tell people there's nothing wrong with working like a job you hate, but don't go into it thinking you're going to move up the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
That personally, it was never my goal. I was like, I need to work this job for 2 years, save money, invest money, so then I could spend a year or two doing what I actually want to do, and then I need to figure out how to monetize within a year or two, which I think is a reasonable amount of time to put in before you can monetize.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And okay, so you went to LA.
Yeah.
You lived in a content house. What was the first content house you lived in?
Okay, so I shot with the Hype House, and then about like a week later, there was a guy named Bryant.
Okay, but we got to stop at the Hype House because that's like literally. Let's just stop
Yeah.
there for a little bit because I'm sure.
Yeah,
You
a lot of
know,
people
there's
are,
some
yeah.
detail a little bit missing.
Yeah.
What was that like? Day one, you walk in and you're like, oh my god, what is this?
Yeah, so I mean, it was wild. It was literally like that Miley Cyrus song, "Party in the USA."
Oh, yeah.
Like you hop off the plane at LAX with a dream, you know what
And
I
a
mean?
cardigan.
But yeah, so I literally I'd visited LA, but you know, for those that don't know, like LA proper, like Hollywood Boulevard, is kind of a cesspool. It's kind of a shithole, to be honest with you. Not as glamorous as it looks.
Right.
But so the original Hype House was in Encino.
Okay.
Encino is like, say maybe like 30-minute drive from Beverly Hills.
Okay.
So this is nice. These are some of the nicest houses in the world.
Right.
So I rented a car on like Turo, drove up to Encino, and it's like a mega mansion.
Right.
It's like a 8-bedroom mansion, pool in the backyard, one of the nicest houses I've ever been to. I go in, there's like Addison Rae, Bryce Hall,
Have
Daisy
these people
Keach.
made it at this point or no? Or?
I would say, yeah. I mean, Addison Rae is one of the biggest
Yeah.
stars in the world right now. She just she did a song with Charlie XCX. She's been collaborating with her. She just released another album. So yeah, I met them pretty quickly. Like Nick Austin, he was dating like Madison Beer for a while. Thomas Petro was there, the one who started it. Alex Warren. Yeah, so I mean, just everyone you could think of. And I'm like, damn, I just got here.
Yeah.
I'm already in the room with these people.
Right.
And so, you know, when I got there, I was like, yo, look, let's just shoot real quick. And I shot with like all of them. And the pictures came out great. But it was beautiful. The house is beautiful. Everyone was like pretty chill that day. And that's what I did. Like, I just kind of kept helping where I could.
Yeah.
So about a week later, this was funny. I get there, everyone's like, yeah, we love the photos. Everyone's like, yeah, you should be the photographer, the Hype House ever. A week later, there's a guy named Bryant. He was, I would say at the time, I mean, he's probably the number one Instagram photographer. He just got in early. So since the mid-2010s, he was shooting with like Emma Chamberlain, the Dobre twins, just like a lot of really big people. And so at that time, I was probably like second or third biggest photographer. But Thomas had the first biggest photographer. And so within a week, I moved to LA. So I wasn't expecting to just get the job for photographer, but I was like, whatever, like whether it happens or not, like at least have a friend out there, Thomas, right?
Right.
Within a week, he gets Bryant to do the photography.
Oh.
And he just ghosts me.
Okay.
He just ghosts me. He's like, well, I got the biggest photographer in the world. What do I need to be friends with Adam anymore? So that was like my first real sort of like stereotypical LA moment. So he ghosts me, and literally, I met Bryce Hall and this other guy named Nick Bean.
Okay.
There, they actually were not part of the Hype House. They wanted to start an all guys house called the Sway House.
Okay.
So I reached out to Nick Bean. I'm like, hey, look, Thomas gave the photographer job to Bryant, and he literally was like kind of ghosting me right now, which is kind of bogus. Yeah. But like, I wasn't expecting to get the job, but I didn't expect him to ghost me and stop talking to me just because.
Don't ghost people.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of bogus.
Just let them know. Just
Exactly. He could have been like, hey man, look, we're going with Bryant. You're still welcome to come around. We're still friends.
Exactly.
No, he literally ghosted me.
Yeah.
So Nick Bean was like, bro, the pictures you took of like Bryce and everybody, those are so cool. Come by. We're doing our own content house called the Sway House. You could come do the photography for us. And so that was literally like within a week, I went from the first biggest house to like the second biggest house. But then eventually Sway kind of like took over and became the biggest house at a certain point.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a very good lateral move.
Yeah.
And it was cool, man. Like it was living, there were 6 guys there, and it was kind of like a TikTok frat house.
Yeah.
They would, we'd have like parties, like crazy parties in the hills. A lot of celebrities would come by, like the biggest YouTubers in the world would just show up, biggest Instagrammers, and we do a combination of making content, have fun, and yeah, it was a great time.
So like, what is typically happening at a content house? You are basically shooting these videos.
Yeah.
Is there a certain genre? You're just trying new things, or is it something that is like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Are there people that are consulting? Is that somebody like, like, okay, you're gonna do great, or let's create this new trend? Like, how is that even? It's just, are they sitting there having meetings in the morning, or like what's happening?
Yeah, it actually is. The ones that are run well, that's what they do. So yeah, I would say a normal day at a content house is like there's usually a meeting at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
So let's say like morning or super early afternoon. There's some sort of meeting like, here, this is what we want to get done today. It really depends what type of content the house is making, right? So for example, like I said, Jake Paul had a house called Team 10. They're YouTubers. So YouTube content is totally different than TikTok content.
Yeah, right.
YouTubers, they're filming everything all day on 4K with like these big cameras.
Right.
And then they're cutting it all together for like a crazy like 5 to 10 minute video.
Right.
TikTokers are different. They're short form. So most stuff is shot actually on the phone, and a lot of it was thirst traps.
Oh,
you know what thirst traps are?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's something that I do want to get into. Okay. But yes, we're going to put a pin in that one and come back to it. Yeah.
So yeah, they were shooting like thirst traps primarily. So I would help them film videos. I would help edit, and then I would do the photography. So like back in 2020. You could still grow from photos. Like right now you can't. You need to do video content. But I was able to get this guy, Josh Richards. I got him his first photo with over 1 million likes. Like the photo I took of him. And he still like uses it on like YouTube right now. So that was a time where like being a photographer was like very... Like it was very valued at that time. So I would come in. I was doing everything. Like I said, I'm like, however I can help, let me help.
Right.
And that's what sort of like got me to make a name for myself in that sort of industry.
Yeah. No, I love that. When did you first start to see, within like just seeing the initial house that you were in, second one, etc., that this kind of attention, this theme of like, okay, getting attention is just something that you're seeing over and over again, and there are certain ways. Is there like a certain nastiness or cattiness that comes out, or is it something? It's just like a known phenomenon that I need to do something to get attention. Like what's that idea in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed it. I noticed it when I got out there to LA, when I like started seeing like these kids are getting followed around like movie stars. Like we would go out on Hollywood Boulevard. There was a place like pre-COVID. This was like the hot spot for all the influencers called Saddle Ranch. And so we would pull up to Saddle Ranch, and there would be paparazzi. There would be like a bunch of like sort of like teenagers and young adults like kind of mobbing the place. So that's when I was like, wow, I think like this is the future, because it hadn't really happened too much, you know. So like I would say maybe only in the past like 3 years before 2020, maybe like 2017 up to 2019, there were like a handful of like YouTubers, a handful of Instagrammers that were getting that kind of attention. It wasn't like as widespread.
Okay.
Right? So for example, like I'd say maybe there were like 5 to 10 people in the world that were doing YouTube or Instagram that was getting the kind of traction that large groups of people. So you had the Hype House, the Sway House, you had all these other creators, and I'm like, this is getting to a point where like a lot of people are getting famous, and some people are getting famous overnight. Which also had never happened.
That's interesting.
That was the difference. So like YouTube and Instagram, these people worked years to build a following to start getting noticed. There were people that would show up, they would get one viral video and get 50 million views. And 50 million people would be like, yo, this person's hot as fuck. Like, I'm about to fanboy, or I'm going to fangirl this person, and we're going to mob them. And so literally within a week, you had someone blow up.
So this whole, there's the concept of attraction then, right? Because I'm hearing the thirst traps more so before the idea of rage bait, clickbait, all of that, trauma dumping, all of that. It started with the thirst traps.
I would say it started with thirst traps.
As a photographer specifically, like how did you like your in terms of like aesthetics and photography, like is that something that, because I think that requires a certain amount of direction as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would like try to find that middle ground of like, a really cool artsy photo with like a little sex appeal. That's what I would go for. I would be like, I would walk them through all the poses I wanted them to do. And that, I think, those photos help too. Like I said, when you're getting 1 million likes on a photo, that's almost the equivalent of like what videos do these days.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like getting 1 million people liking your photo, like that means they like you. They really like you.
Now, is there a difference between having like maybe one viral video versus actually, growing a following? Does that happen kind of concurrently, or? So
that is what's very interesting. Back then, you could have one viral video and you could blow up, and you would like people would know who you were. Nowadays, you can't.
Right.
So that was really the difference. Like being in LA at the height of TikTok 2020, I saw a lot of people, they got one viral video and then they moved to LA and they had a career within a week.
Yeah,
right?
That's interesting.
Now you can't really do that because it's too saturated. Everyone can't be famous.
Right.
So now people like are way more selective about like who they're actually going to decide to make famous. So now you do have to build a following. Even if you have multiple viral videos, you may still not get that attention. Like you need to, I think it's back to what I said about the YouTubers and Instagrammers. You gotta be going viral for like 1 to 3 years straight before you build that type of following where people are like noticing you on the street.
Right. Creating that brand essentially, right? Because one video can't create a brand. Do you find that our society now, we're attracted to, because I think about it, you think about how people dislike people. It's like, oh my God, thirst trap, whatever, trauma dumping, that's just clickbait, whatever. But we all hate it, yet we're the ones that's making it famous, if you think about it. Like, what's that psychology about?
I mean, well, so if you look at Instagram just changed their algorithm for Reels. The number one factor that decides whether your video goes viral is view rate past 3 seconds.
Okay.
So, hooks used to be like kind of important, but if the content was good, like you could usually get over that hump. But now the hook is everything.
Yeah.
If you don't hook people in that first 3 seconds, and if people scroll away from your video in the first second or two, your video gets killed. So that is all to say that it's sort of encouraging rage bait. It's encouraging trauma dumping. It's encouraging that video where it's like, my father just got murdered, you know, like starting the video off of that. And it's like, yo, that's horrible. Like, you know, but everyone's going to want to watch because everyone would like to see a train wreck.
Yeah.
Or like, yo, like, you know, I'm going to tell you about the time I got essayed. You know what I mean? Like, it's really messed up.
Oh my God.
No, but that's what people are doing. It's like a combination of rage bait, telling really like, you know, stories that they should probably keep private.
Oh my gosh.
But they're doing it to get that hook.
Yeah.
Because people want to see fucked up shit.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, what's that? There's this one audio or whatever where it's like, I don't even remember what the audio was, but then you hear, like, you see all of these extremely, like, oh, my kid got, you know, kidnapped, whatever. I don't know what it is. But the thing is, it's so common now to see these heinous things that people are now becoming almost desensitized to.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's something that's going to affect us?
I think it's going to affect Gen Z and Gen A more.
I didn't even know there was a Gen A.
Those are like the tweens right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Gen Z and Gen A. I think it's already affected Gen Z. Like Gen A, I think is maybe going to be worse. I think they're cooked, to be honest. But it's definitely having a negative effect. I think there is more that like it's hard because the social media companies are incentivized to keep this behavior.
Yeah, the dopamine hit, the user engagement.
So
keep coming back and trying.
Yeah. And I think until they're and the issue is like I don't know the exact clear way to fix it. But until social media companies do more, I think it's definitely going to have a negative mental effect on people. I think people are going to become desensitized to the crazier stuff. But I also think the algorithm pushes people to extremes to the point where, you know, that's the whole reason why like everyone is so so PC, politically correct now. And then it's like it's kind of messed up in that I think the issue with why TikTok was going to get banned is like China could theoretically click a button and make you sympathetic to the Chinese Communist Party.
100%.
They could, you know, there's a reason why like the Palestine thing, I think that all started on TikTok. You get a few people who make a sympathetic to Palestine video, and then everyone's like, this is the line we have to take. So it's, you know, regardless of what you believe, it's being driven by what you see on social media, and these companies have sort of the power to...
It's that interest. I mean, you know, when that happened where TikTok was being banned, I was that dumb person that needed to delete the app so that I would have a little bit more storage on my phone. So I deleted it, and I'm like, oh.
I knew, you never delete any app. Delete an app. Yeah.
But then there's also, I was just like, I'm going to go to this Red thing what was it? There's like an app in China where they wanted Red Note, whatever, which I still can't even unsubscribe or delete myself as a user because I can't read Mandarin. So I'm like, oh, damn, now like my data. Yeah. I don't know what I have even like, you know, consented to. But there is that, right? Where I think that these
just
larger
your
companies.
firstborn child.
maybe. Oh man, it'll come around sometime. I'll figure it out. Yeah. I'll know what went wrong. But that's the thing is though, these larger companies, you don't know where your information is going. This algorithm that there is that you don't know what is being dictated. Just so quickly as they can make somebody super famous within one viral video, over time they've shifted it. The algorithm has been shifted now to make it difficult because they know that, keep trying, user engagement, this and that, and all of these things. I wonder where we're headed with it, right? But at the same time, if you think about society, everybody wants to be out there. Everybody wants to be, in some ways, not everybody, most But it seems that the general kind of gist of it is that people want to be seen, right? They want to be influenced. They want to be influencers to some degree, even if you have a private account, right? You're going to put the highlight reel of what the best thing is that you want people to see, even though it might be private, but to your user base, you're going to see things that I'm not going to post, a fight with my husband, or I'm not going to be like sitting there like, oh my God, like, I mean, unless I'm trauma dumping. Yeah. Maybe I will. I don't know. Now I'm confused. There's so many different avenues. But my point is that, but to then become famous, you still have to try, right? Yeah. People are afraid of trying also. Do you think that there's like a shame associated with, oh my God, I've been trying to grow my account for X amount of years, etc. People, maybe they don't see me. Do you think the whole thing is just like not being relevant? Do you think people are, they are afraid to put themselves out there like that?
I think it's a combination of two things. Definitely people are afraid to put themselves out there. I tell people all the time, just start posting. Yeah. Just try, start posting, but it's that fear paralysis. So it's like they're so afraid to look dumb or look ugly on the internet or whatever that they just get paralyzed and they never do it at all. And I think that I would say is the biggest issue. But I think also just like people just don't, a lot of people don't have the work ethic. Yeah. I think it's honestly equally those two, because I mean there's so many people. I meet people like I'm not this type of person. Like I try to go as long as possible without telling people I have a following. But like if I've been talking to someone like all night or whatever, or like we exchange Instagrams or whatever, and then like I'm not they just notice that I have a following. And they're like, oh my God, like are you famous? Like I want to be famous. Like can you make me famous? And it's more of like, I mean, that just implies that they want me to do all the work for them. Yeah. Like they want me to put them in all my videos. They want me to make you have to do your own work. Yeah. And like I have people that I collab with who aren't big influencers, but they're like really down to work. Like they come, I have ideas, we film, and we just get shit done. And I would rather work with someone like that than someone who's like either has a following but is lazy, or just someone who like wants to be famous but like has no work ethic.
They just want to ride the wave. Yeah. That's the thing is though, now that's where kind of maybe the underbelly comes in from someone who has put in the work but also grows content. Do you see that people treat you differently? Do you think that people are very transactional when it comes to, is there a reason? I mean, okay, I'm just hearing, like, you don't typically say it up front, right? Yeah. Which is totally fine, because, like, there's so much more to you as a human being that people should get to know, right? Yeah. But at the same time, the same reason why maybe, like, Brad Pitt might not be, like, if nobody knows who he is, he's not going to be like, oh, guess what? I also do these films, and I do all these and that, which creates that transactional nature. Yeah. When you started to see that there's a certain amount of following or a certain amount of kind of traction that you were getting, did you start to notice that people started to treat you differently?
What I notice is people that I don't really have a relationship with, yes. So it's like if I just meet someone, or if I have a very like new relationship with someone, then yes. But the good thing is that like most of the people that I've been friends with hasn't really changed our relationship. And then there are people, I think there's something also in between. There are people who will just reach out and be like, hey, we're doing this like really cool thing, we want to invite you. Then I get invited to like really cool shit, and then I meet them and they're really nice people. And it's like, I think you could technically say that was transactional, but I think there's sort of a middle ground where like I like cool experiences. Like if they're inviting me to something, I'm going, and like I'll do a quick post about it to support them and their project. That technically is a transaction, but at the same time, I'm having a good time. I'm meeting cool people, and they're treating me, like I think normal, not like overly nice or like, kissing my ass or anything.
But I think that those are two types of transactions, right? Yeah. One transaction, somebody's bringing value,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Where it's like, okay, this is a synergy. what, this could be exciting, like
Yeah.
I'm getting value from this. They're also getting the value. But when the value is one-sided, where it's like it's not reciprocal, and you can just tell that, very blatantly, this is what I want to,
Oh, yeah. No, I shut that shit down immediately.
Yeah.
If it's like very clear someone is just like, just want something, I shut it down because it's like, it's not worth it. Like, you don't really want those people in your life.
Yeah, there's the toxic environment, which I think that with social media, it's enough of a toxic environment. Why let that into your real life?
Yeah.
Now, I want to get into how you got into the music aspect of things, because that is pretty cool. Like that's like a whole science in itself. So I'd love for you to get into that.
Okay, so I started a company called Rapid Launch Media in 2020 during COVID. So basically, this is basically right after the content house, the first content houses we discussed. So Hype House, The Sway House, and then COVID hit. Because this was January through March 2020. COVID hit like late March, and I moved back to Chicago in April. And this was like the first time in my life, like my adult life, where I didn't go out. I wasn't like talking to any like girls. I was like, I'm going to lock in because I literally can't do anything.
Right.
And so I was one of the first people to notice that music was blowing up almost exclusively on TikTok. It was going there. In 2020, it hadn't happened yet. There were still a lot of hits on the radio. People were still watching music videos on YouTube. But the moment it hit me, hilariously, I was at my friend's bachelor party, and this was like a week before COVID. So this was sometime in March 2020. I was with my millennial friends, and so these were all my friends at the time. I think we were like mid to late 20s, like across the group, and then they were listening to the same music as like the 18 and 19-year-olds I was working with at the TikTok house.
Okay.
And I was like, this was the first time where I seen like two very different age groups listening to like the exact same songs. And I was like, I think there's something here. I think they're getting all of this from TikTok. I need to figure out how to like package this and sell it to people.
Yeah.
And so essentially what I did was I met a couple people in the music industry when I was living in LA, when I first moved out there. And one of them was he was the A&R for Katy Perry.
Okay.
So he basically, helped make Katy Perry who she is. Like the A&R comes up with the sound, their look, like the whole persona.
And as forgive my ignorance.
Yeah.
A&R stands
so
for.
So A&R stands for artist and repertoire.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But what they do pragmatically is they help decide the songs. They the songs that become singles. They help decide the look, how the artist sounds, just their whole persona.
Okay.
That's probably the best way I can explain it.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
And so he's a really high up guy. His name's Chris Anakute. He's a really high up guy in the music industry. So I go to him and I say, hey, look, I think I can blow up any one of the songs that you're working on. Like if you got any new artists, I think I can take them to the next level. And I convinced him to give me, I think it was like $10K. And so what I did was I would essentially take a snippet of the song, so like a 10 to 15 second snippet of the song, and then I would pay influencers to use that snippet in their song until it went viral.
Yeah.
And then essentially, like once the song starts going viral on TikTok, it converts to streams over on Spotify and Apple Music.
Interesting.
And that makes the artists a ton of money if it goes viral enough.
Right.
The first song that I worked on with Anakute was a song called Stunnin' by an artist named Curtis Waters.
No.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So the
Like
first song
Curtis
I worked
Waters.
on, the first song I worked on was a song called Stunnin' by an artist named Curtis Waters. Within 3 months of starting the campaign, it was the #1 song in the world on TikTok.
Ooh, okay. Wow, that's amazing.
It ended up getting over 1 billion streams, which like just from streaming revenue, they probably made like 5 million.
Yeah.
And then you got licensing, you got sync deals, which that's what I said, where like they put your song in like a show or a film, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So they made a lot of money on that song.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's such a great time, as you mentioned, to come into something, luck, timing, grit, right? Understanding that model is such it was a model based off of your network.
Yeah.
You know, just being in these houses, I'm sure, being able to have access to influencers, being within that scene. I mean, I am just actually floored by the fact that it's so elaborate, you know?
Yeah. Well, so look, what actually I think is interesting is my entire life, I've noticed people think very linearly, and I kind of like, to the outside observer, I might kind of look like all over the place. Like I might look crazy to other people, right? People are like, how'd you go from being an influencer photographer to starting like a music influencer marketing agency? But so what I try to explain to people is like, in my head, these things are all connected. Photography was something I was passionate about, but it was always a way to break into the entertainment industry because famous people and influencers, they all need photos. They all need content, right? So I knew once I was in that industry, once I made those relationships, I could figure out a way to monetize it in a different way. So those three things may seem like very separate, but in my head it was always kind of my end plan. It was like I just need to get in the industry, and then I got in the industry. Then I was like, now I need to monetize, and then I figured that out. You know, so these were all steps on like a path that wasn't really linear. It looks like all over the place, but I got there.
But essentially, I think that you were then paving the path, right?
Exactly.
Because I think that specifically, I mean, you know, my domain expertise, I'm in tax, right?
Yeah.
You look at things institutionally, you're like, okay, that's how that goes, that's how that goes. But if you're somebody that is into innovation, you know, you will come in and look at it like you can solve the problem in a very different way. But I think it's also being able to be in a place where you can recognize there's an opportunity.
Exactly. And I'll tell you another reason I think this worked out for me as well as it did is, so I have a degree from the University of Illinois. So I am like very much like a more classically like educated person. But I also was working with like, you know, 18 to 21-year-old TikTokers, right? And so what I realized is that influencers are not very good at like business speak. Just as well as, you know, these CEOs of major companies, they're not really good at talking to like younger people, right? And so I was sort of able to bridge that gap where I could speak the, you know, TikTok lingo and everyone, you know, I was friends with everyone and they like, you know, kind of listened to me when I was giving them advice for stuff. And then I would talk to CEOs and I would be like, hey, look, this is a fucking 5-page business plan of why this song's going to blow up and how I'm going to make you money.
Exactly.
And so I could speak to both and sort of bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So instead of a TikToker having to talk to a CEO, I would go to the TikTok and be like, hey, I'm going to give you a ton of money from the CEO, make these videos, it'll be a good opportunity. And I would go to the CEOs and be like, hey, look, this is one of the top influencers in the world. Their thirst traps go viral. Like, they're going to make your song blow up. And I would explain it to both parties in a way like, this is why it's going to be beneficial for you both. And all the money that was like in the middle is kind of what
you're the broker for that. That's awesome.
Like,
But that's the thing is, though, I think that, you know, finding that opportunity. And I know that you were in Champaign and with your degree, I mean, linguistics is not just so much the language component, but also the culture component, right? So I would love for you to elaborate on that and how that kind of like, you know, transferred over to, you know, just your success and
absolutely. So my degree was international studies with the focus on linguistics. I was actually going to work for the CIA.
Yeah, okay, let's delve into that.
Yeah, that's like, the most random thing.
Maybe not. I
so,
think I'm gonna.
Well, so it was really random. Like, so ever since I was a kid, I was just like really good at languages. Like, I started speaking Spanish. Like, I took Spanish in like 3rd grade. Started speaking better than the Hispanic kids in my class.
Okay.
Yeah, so it always came naturally to me. So when I was a kid, I started watching all these like CIA shows, like Homeland, The Americans, like basically about like spies.
Right.
And I was just really into it. And so I was like, I want to be like a spy. I want to work for the CIA. And basically what ended up happening is, you know, I took the Foreign Service Officers test. This is the hardest test in government. Only 25% of people pass on the first try. I passed it.
Okay.
And so the CIA returned my application, or I applied. They got back to me. What ended up happening is they were like, hey, look, we want you to know if you take this job, we can send you wherever we want. Like, if we want to send you to Syria, if we want to send you a conflict zone, you just have to go.
Yeah.
And if you're not cool with that, then don't take the job. And so for me, I always thought the CIA would have a little more autonomy, but it kind of felt like the military. And it just wasn't me. Like, I'm very much a free thinker. Like, I wanted at least to be able to say, like, oh, I can be in this region, or I could, like, do this sort of thing. But it was kind of like, you got to do what we tell you to do.
Yeah.
So overnight, my entire career path just was done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think I took those skills, though. Like you said, it's not even just the language, but it's also the culture, and it's also the ability to, like, read people. And so that feeds into, you know, kind of what I said was, I can meet someone regardless of their age, regardless of their background, and I feel like I can really connect to them because of having that, like, potential CIA background. And so it was very easy for me to just go into this TikTok crowd and sort of fit in to the point where, like, everyone was like, oh yeah, like, Adam gets it, like, he's here. And then I would go to the CEOs and they would be like, oh, this kid, like, actually is not dumb, like, he's actually like smart, he has a background and has a degree. So that was super helpful. I think culturally, there's certain things that people from other cultures, most people wouldn't know about, and knowing about that would help me. And also, I think people, when you speak their language, even if they speak English fluently, if they speak a second language, knowing that language helps you bond with people.
Oh, absolutely.
So much quicker.
Right.
Because taking the time to actually learn another person's language and learn about their culture, they're like, okay, this person actually, like, cares about stuff. You know?
And I would say that there's a nuance to, like, you know, culture, language, definitely it's there. You don't have to know every culture, but to know and understand that maybe somebody might operate differently. And, you know, in terms of kind of like an audience, right, that might be receptive to that. Just being able to also posture them to be able to put themselves out in the best light.
Exactly.
So is that something that you were seeing or no? Or with, like, certain influencers that you worked with, or certain music that you were trying to put out there, were you choosing, hey, I think that this audience would be a good fit for you? Is that something that is there or no?
So I would say that I was good at seeing trends.
Okay.
I was good at... So instead of reading people, I was sort of like reading data. And it wasn't just like data. It was more like, you know, that gut feeling is actually a real thing. Right. It's your subconscious sort of telling you, like, yo, this is it. So, for example, there was that song with the Stunning song I told you about. It had started to go viral based on a dance trend that the artist was doing.
Okay.
And so there were maybe like 6,000 videos made to it by the time I, like, said, like, hey, we need to switch things up. I went through all 6,000 videos and I said, hey, look, this dance trend is pretty good. We're getting some traction, but I think we need to switch. We need to put all of our budget behind these influencers who will do this trend. And it was a clothes changing trend. So it was like a transition. They would jump up, they would change clothes.
Oh, yes.
And they did it like 4 times and it would just blow up. And that is what I think made the difference. So I think, you know, you have to be able to read everything. You need to be able to read people. You need to be able to read trends. You need to just really understand how things work and sort of get into the psyche of the different types of people that you're working with. And that all feeds back into, I was working with these TikTokers. I was working with these people in that age range, so I knew what they liked.
Yeah.
And that, I think, makes a difference.
Yeah, oh, definitely. but also then creating trends, right? Like, how do you create a trend? I mean, just testing things and seeing if it takes, or is there a strategy to that? Yeah,
so what I would do is I would take 20 smaller influencers, like, and these are people, you know, I could pay, like, anywhere from like $20 to $50.
Okay.
And I would say, take this song and do something original, do something creative, make a trend out of it. So then I would have 20 different trends. And then I would further test, let's say, the top 5. And then I would have other influencers do those top 5. And then I would whittle it down to like the top 3. And then maybe add something to it. And then you get that final trend.
Interesting.
So there's a whole gauntlet of like testing that I would do before I got to the viral trend.
It sounds so strategic. It's not like, oh my gosh, here, let me just flip a bottle. Oh, it ended up on the...
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell
that
people. That's what I tell people. 95% of the trends that you see on social media were planted in your head by someone like me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You guys are essentially being like, you know, like puppeteers.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like people think, oh, this just went viral on its own. Like, that's so cool. No, this is me or someone like me paying a ton of doing a ton of testing, paying a ton of influencers until eventually you see this so much, it gets stuck in your head. By that third or fourth time, you're like, okay, like this is, I want to do this now.
Yeah.
And then we got you to make a video. So hilariously, this is kind of like what spies do.
Yeah.
We're planting like things in your head. We're kind of like that inception of like, oh, you think you're just doing this trend because it's trending. No.
But I'm in your head.
Yeah, I'm in your head, yeah.
It's like that time I thought a reality show was reality.
Yeah.
Like, what? You know, and I remember I was on a plane, and I was sitting next to a reality show producer. This was like back in the day, like very long ago. I don't even want to tell you. But, you know, I was just like, oh my gosh, these reality shows, they're so fun. Oh my God, how do you do that? What? And he's just like, no, they're scripted. I'm like, I don't believe you. I just didn't want to believe him. I'm like, what? Yeah. This isn't reality? No.
I have a really funny reality show story. I was on it was one episode of this like dating show.
Okay.
And so they had us it was hosted by Andy Cohen.
Okay.
He's like the guy.
Yeah, the Bravo guy.
Yeah, the Bravo guy, yeah. I went on a date with this girl. They split us up after the date. We didn't see each other for like a week.
Did you like her? You just kind of, it was a blind date, or?
Yeah. We actually liked each other, but they sort of kind of put in our heads, we weren't allowed to contact each other after the date.
Oh.
And the producers kind of put in our head that like we both didn't like each other or whatever. And they kind of wanted to just see us fight on stage.
Oh my gosh.
And so here's what happened. I go out, there was literally a point in the show where they were like, we want you to rate how attractive they are on a scale of 1 to 10, straight up to their face.
Oh, okay.
And I rated her like a 7.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was like fine. Like,
yeah.
You can't get like too offended by that.
Yeah.
I'm going out on the stage and they're like, hey, look, like, so for this storyline, I feel like you maybe rated her a little bit high. You did say she was like a little short for you. Like they was trying to like get me to lower my thing. And I was like, I mean, look, whatever, man. You guys just flew me out to LA. Like, what do you want me to rate her? Like a 6?
Yeah.
They're like, we need you to rate her a 3.
What?
And I was
That's
like,
so horrible.
I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna look like an asshole. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And then they were like, we'll pay you $2,000.
Okay.
And I was like, 3 it is. And I go in front of a live studio audience. And I tell this girl she's a 3, and everyone gasps, like even her, because she doesn't know that basically the producers kind of like nudged me to do it.
Oh my gosh.
It was so funny. So yeah, I would say like if it's not fully scripted, the producers are in the background just like kind of nudging you to be a fucking asshole.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Hilarious.
Like I just finished watching the last season of Amazing Race, and there was a couple on there where this guy was such a gaslighter.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the entire season. And I'm like, nobody could be that rude. Nobody could be that mean, you know? But I guess it is scripted, you know?
I think, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think someone was probably nudging them at least to be like, okay.
Yeah.
Be a little bit
interesting.
more.
Well, good to know that we live a scripted life on social media, through the companies, but also on reality TV.
Yeah.
But speaking of TV and film, you're doing something kind of interesting, something new. There's a new project.
Yes, so I'm working on a movie called Ugly Girls. It's a feature film. So I mean, the easiest way to describe it to people is like it's kind of a dark version of Mean Girls.
Okay.
That's just an easy way to get people to understand a little bit of the type of movie it'll be, but it's actually really like a dark thriller. I think the comparisons kind of end there. The only comparisons are really that it's like a movie about teenage girls who are kind of like really mean to each other.
Okay.
But it's a really dark thriller, and I really just think there hasn't been a feature film similar to Mean Girls since it came out.
Right.
You know, I think like Euphoria has done a pretty good job at taking like a darker look at like that life, but personally Mean Girls has always been one of my favorite movies because it takes place here in Chicago.
Yes, it does.
North Shore,
right?
And I've always thought it was one of the most like films that you like, one of the most relatable films,
Right.
I think, was made.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone had sort of that high school experience where, like, there are all these, like, different cliques, and like, you kind of fit in with some, you kind of didn't fit in with others, but like, you kind of just made it through. And at the end, you know, as bad as it felt in the moment, by the time you finish high school, you're like, oh, this is kind of stupid. Like, why did we even
bother with it? Yeah.
You know?
So then it's a darker version, Ugly Girls. So it's how girls can get ugly.
So the idea is that if you take like Lindsay Lohan's character in Mean Girls, instead of being this like easily corruptible girl from the Midwest, this girl's a psycho who knows who the mean girls are. And she will do whatever she can do to be a part of that clique. She will lie, cheat, steal, potentially even kill to get into that crew.
Oh my gosh.
And it gets really, really dark. There's some like really messed up scenes, like where, you know, to give you an idea, there's like a scene where she's like, you know, she's 16 in the movie and her friends want her to buy like alcohol. She's like, they're like, oh, we forgot our fake. So she's like, oh, I'll do it. She goes into the liquor store and the liquor store clerk has an ankle monitor and she's like, sell me the alcohol. And he's like, no, like, you don't have an ID, you're clearly underage. And she's like, sell me the alcohol or I'm going to tell people you tried to rape me.
Oh, okay.
And like, you know what I mean?
That's
It's like,
just
it's
yeah.
really dark. It's
Oh my
really like
God.
disturbing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I tell people, it's like, think of the top 3 shows and films in the past few years. It's been Euphoria, which is super messed up.
Yeah.
Squid Game, which is a game about
annihilating people.
Annihilating people, right? There are just, I would say all the biggest films and TV shows are the really dark things.
Yeah.
I think there's like sort of a taste for that because, you know, I don't think people like this stuff would ever do anything like that in real life. So they kind of want to see it. They kind of want to be like, oh, like what if I was a horrible person?
Yeah.
What if like I did all these screwed up things? And it's sort of tantalizing.
Yeah,
You know?
no, I could see that. I mean, I have kids, and I remember. You see a lot of stuff on TV. You know, there's a lot of the violence, which they don't discourage for kids to see, and then also kind of inappropriate behaviors, physical behaviors.
Yeah.
And like I remember one of my kids asking me, it's like, why can't we? I'm like, do you see that on, like, if you look outside and you see people? How many times you see somebody just like making out on the street? Like you see it maybe every now and then, but it's not mainstream.
Yeah.
And you also don't see like weapons being used mainstream. I mean, if you're living in a conflict zone, that's a different story, obviously, unfortunately. But just generally, because why do they need that? The ratings, they put that out there because people want to see it. It's not something that's natural, but
Exactly.
So long as they know, but that's such an interest. So when is this out to? Are you done with this
So
project?
I'm still in the process of getting it greenlit.
Okay.
We've got a lot of good traction on it. So I mean, producing a film is, I think, maybe one of the hardest things to do in the world.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's a $2.5 million budget.
Okay.
So when you produce a film, so I started this in 2021. So I've been working on it for 4 years.
Yeah.
I hired a scriptwriter. I paid for the script, paid for all the rights, went through about 10 different iterations of the script. Then I had to find a strategic partner. So what I would do, I went to every film festival. I went to Cannes Film Festival in France. I went to Sundance Film Festival. I went to a bunch of different ones. I ended up meeting a pretty well-known executive production company called Buffalo 8, and they've been helping us essentially get meetings with a lot of the top directors and actors.
Yeah.
So right now, that actually was the third movie I was going to mention, Saltburn. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That's one of the most screwed up movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was pretty screwed up.
And it was the biggest movie of 2024, arguably. So we're actually trying to get that director.
Oh, interesting.
The director of Saltburn, her name is Emerald Fennell. I'm hoping, she's got a lot of projects. I mean, that would be sort of like a dream director. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where, how it works is you need to really get like a director with some good credits and movies sort of in your niche. And if you can get them, then they're able to go out to all of the top actors who are in their films and say, hey, look, I'm doing this next project. And the actors trust the director that got them, a hit film.
Right, that ecosystem. That's amazing.
Exactly. So it's really like all the dominoes kind of got to fall one by one, and then eventually you end up with a great director, an A-list actor, a great script, and then the money just flows in.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is, though. So, like, just listening to everything that you've said, it takes a certain amount of risk. And for anybody that is listening, I think that anybody that wants to try something new might be a little bit afraid of doing it, because I think that people just don't want to just jump off, right?
Yeah. I think you have to be passionate about it. So I think this is probably like the biggest passion project of my life. I've always wanted to make a film. I've always been a big cinephile, and I've seen, you know, almost every 2000s like rom-com or like thriller. Like, it's always been something that's been important to me. So I've probably invested almost like $40K of my own money over the past 4 years into this. And so I'm not doing it for a quick return. I'm not even doing it like, I want the movie to be profitable, but I'm not even doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I really want to make this film. And I think a lot of people don't have that long-term mindset of do something because you're passionate about it and because you really want it to happen.
Right.
Make it good and put yourself in a position to succeed and make money from it, but don't make that the driving force.
Absolutely. Like, you have to essentially then be attracted to what your passion is. I mean, I think that is where the substance comes in. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. You need that. You have to be a substantive person.
Yes.
To really go through all the trial and error it takes and to, you know, put your money on the line. That's the thing. I mean, I've had other investments offered to me that were a way better like opportunity to make money than putting into a film. But it's not always about money. Right. You know, sometimes it's about like, you need to do what you want to do. And I'm like, if I could get a film produced, you can do anything. Yeah. Like outside of being like an insanely rich person or like a Nepo baby whose father is like Johnny Depp or something, you know what I mean? Like, you can't get a movie made. Like, it's almost impossible. So like, if I'm able to do this, then I'm like, damn, this is.
But that's the thing. So would you say then, essentially, in order to do things like this, you need to go against the trend?
Absolutely. I mean, but I think it's a combination of going against the trend. I would say it's do what everyone else isn't doing. Right. You know, not everyone who wants to make a film is gonna invest money to fly to France and go to the Cannes Film Festival and just network all day. Right. You know, not everyone is going to DM 100 producers every day or DM 100 directors every day. And
are you doing that every day?
That's what I did to get to where I am
awesome.
now. That's what I did over the first like 3 years in the project. I was messaging everybody. I'm like, read the script. And the other good thing is, like, you know, those people didn't end up actually helping with the film, but some people who were pretty high up read the script and they were like, this is a great script. Like, I need you to do more before I get involved. But to have that many people who don't know you, who have no reason to lie to you, be like, this is a great script, that is one of the reasons I kept going. Yeah, that's exactly. And to be able to recognize that.
Because
you need self-awareness.
I agreed.
Self-awareness is a big thing. I think a lot of people have a shit script, and they're like, I'm going to get this made no matter what, but like, you're not.
You don't. Agreed. That is so true. In so many different ways. I mean, I have loved learning about this. This has been such an eye-opening conversation for me, just realizing that social media is such a way of life for everybody, but there is such a nuanced kind of like behind-the-scenes look to it that I didn't even think about, you know? Okay, so where can we reach you? How can we find out about this film eventually? Or, you know, how can we keep us posted? How can we follow you and reach out to your company, Rapid Launch Media?
Absolutely. So my Instagram is It's Adam. It's ITS and then Adam with 2 M's. Super easy. In my bio is my company, Rapid Launch Media. You could just click it. It'll show all the songs we worked on. We've made songs go viral for Kalani, Jack Harlow, Tekashi, Nicki Minaj, like a ton of people. We've worked with the biggest artists in the world for that. As for the film, I'm hoping to get it greenlit by the end of the year and start filming next year, but it's called Ugly Girls. If you like, you know, dark 2000s thrillers, like this is kind of going to be a more updated version of something like that. Okay. So just keep an eye out for it.
I love it. Okay, this has been such a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. It just really was so eye-opening and amazing, so I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, amazing.